Meeting, so I can call it to order. Call the meeting to order.
No, but if they're part of the government.
Mr. Chair, we have not received any other business items in advance of the meeting.
Okay. First item.
First item on the agenda is the minutes of the Council and Committee meeting held on Monday, April 18, 2016. The recommendation is to approve the minutes.
Moved and seconded. Moved by Councillor O'Neill, second by Councillor Asmussen. All in favor? Any opposed? Carries unanimous.
Item 2 is our first staff report. It pertains to the Centennial Activity Centre extended closure impacts. We have introductory comments by the General Manager of Parks, Recreation and Culture, and the report is before you for information.
Before we go there, do you want to have the introduction on that, or
I
do you
will. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will ask as well that before we receive this report, that we also have a discussion in closed. But there's a bunch of this that is fine and open, so let's go with that.
Okay. Please.
Yes, thank you. So I'll just make some introductory comments, as noted by the clerk. Thank you. A couple of things I would like to say, just for council's benefit and just generally publicly. So the city has been working well with the school district on this issue. We've had to deal with the fact that the closure has been extended from 1 year to potentially 2 years. That has raised obviously some issues for us that we have to deal with, and the school district as well has done their best to date, and there's still ongoing discussions with the school district. Their staff have offered a number of venues. They're continuing to look at their venues, and through that discussion, some venues are eliminated in terms of their ability to hold the kind of programs we're running. We're also looking at rental rates, and there's custodial rates that really have to be paid in terms of facilities that we now have to operate for programs that have to be relocated. Some of the rental rates are something that the school is still looking at. But this report really highlights the big picture that we were facing 1 year closure. We're looking at 18 months to potentially 24 months, which means that we are going to have an impact, and that really is the important part of this report. The details, there's some fine details that could still be worked on, and we're still working, whether we can add a couple hours a week here or there, or we could potentially get a little bit of relief on rental rates. And again, it's important to know that the school district is working with us and with our staff team to figure out the best way to deal with the closure over the period of time that we might find is the result. It could be 18 months, 19 months, 22 months. We're not sure. So there's some unknowns here. So I just wanted to raise for council this issue. That is certainly not an intent to give the impression we're not getting cooperation. We certainly are. But largely, no matter what we do across both sides of the table, we're going to be facing the reality that we don't have the venues necessary to provide the programming that we have today. And that's because we have a shortage of gymnasium space. Gymnasium space has been highlighted in our master plan, and we are looking to expand our gymnasium inventory in the next few years with a number of projects that the city is going to be working on. So those are my comments. I'll just open up to the floor for questions.
I have myself down and Richard. Okay. A number of questions, but I'm only going to ask one at this time, and that is the impact of this on the 55-plus games. Had we factored this in? Was this something that was going to be used? So maybe that's something I know that will come up in the community, so maybe you can just address that, and then I'll leave the rest for later.
Yes, we anticipated this closure in the planning of the 55-plus games, so all of the gymnasium venues will be at Pine Tree.
Okay, good. Thank you. Richard, or Stuart, and then Chris.
To what extent are the city's staff involved or overseeing the construction processes, the construction timelines for School District 43 on this, what will be a joint building?
We're not. It's largely seismic. This is. Hopefully you can hear. We are not overseeing the building reconstruction. It's in that sense. It's part of the larger project. We've been in discussions with them about how long, and we knew it was about a year. We were told it was going to be a year, and We've just been advised that it's going to be longer than that, and I think that's the extent of the information we have. The school district is actually making the best efforts, as far as they've told us, to reduce the timeline. They're aware of the impact. They're very concerned about the impact, and they'd like to reduce the impact on the city. But they do believe it's the minimum would be 18 months. And I guess to answer your question, not in a significant detail in terms of being able to run or to influence the construction process or the timeline for that project.
Okay, because the city has, of course, done similar elements of construction or addition onto a building, civic buildings like City Hall here, or like Dogwood Pavilion, or like the Sports Center. And in all three cases, we didn't shut the facilities down for any period of time, although elements of them weren't available. So I'm trying to comprehend what work is involved here that would require the building to be shut down for the year, first of all, and how on earth it could take longer to do the component adjustments in the interface than it would take to build the high school, because 24 months is longer than the high school took. So.
Through the chair, I don't know the specifics of the construction timeline, but I do know it's a significant building that they're building. The building as we know it is changing significantly. There'll be 2 stories of programmable space and offices. There'll be multi-purpose space. The 2 gyms will stay intact. Our multi-purpose room will be there. It's being converted into washrooms temporarily while 1 gym stays functioning for the high school. So there's quite a few balls in the air, so to speak, as this project rolls forward, but it'll be a completely different building when it reopens as a neighborhood learning center from what we know it as now.
Sorry. When it opens, will the buildings? Okay, under their agreement, they agreed to provide us access to the building for every weekend, every summer holiday, spring break, and winter holiday, and for weekends and 4 days a week, 4 evenings a week, for a specific space that we bought. Is that space remaining? The space will still be there at the end of this.
Yes, when the NLC opens, our space will remain intact. We will have the same space we had before the renovation. They're just adding on.
So, but in between that, it's not being used at all, or it's being kept open for the schools programs?
The entire building is being shut down except for 1 gym that we will not have access to during the construction phase. And our multi-purpose space will be converted to washrooms temporarily, washrooms and change rooms for that gymnasium space. So the gym we currently use is also going under seismic upgrading. So there's a bit of a gym swap. When 1 gym stays open for the school district, they'll swap us into that gym while our gym is seismically upgraded. I didn't bring the details of the timelines on those specifics, but like I say, there's some give and take back and forth over the next 2 years, but it is closed to our public programs until the entire center reopens.
But the building that we contributed to was built under the 2001 seismic code, which wouldn't need upgrading because it's not being added to.
I'm not sure the specifics, but I've just been told that our gym requires seismic upgrading.
So okay, the seismic upgrading doesn't take 2 years, so that's not the problem. And they're keeping 1 gym for their use, but not allowing us to use it, even though they're contractually required to let us use the facility until it is torn down 40 years from now. They're contractually required to let us use it, right? Okay, all right. I guess that was a rhetorical question, and that might come up later.
Later. Councillor Wilson.
Well, I'm just going to follow on Mayor Stewart's questions. And maybe this is my fault because I didn't go to the information sessions that the school district put on, but I'm still unsure exactly what's happening. And has council received a report on what's happening that I missed? So could you maybe describe a little bit about what's happening so that, because when I got this report, I thought, oh, geez, okay, but I still don't understand. Like, is this building going to be a standalone building by itself, or will it be connected to the new school at some point? And, just a little bit more information about what's happening. And you said there's going to be 2 levels of programming, so are they adding to the roof, or?
It's my understanding, the buildings will not be connected. The Centennial School will sit separately from the NLC because there is apparently a pipeline that runs through the site. So it is going to be a standalone neighborhood learning center. And the two gyms, the multipurpose room will stay intact as we know it, and then they're building 2 stories attached to it that will be office space, multipurpose space that will be open to the community users that have agreed to partner on the NLC.
Yeah, so maybe I just wasn't, I guess, sure on the attachment. So the report's really thorough in terms of the costs that the city will incur in terms of loss of revenue, but it doesn't talk at all about loss of jobs and that sort of thing. Do we have anything figured out in terms of the impact on our employees?
Most of the employees that work at Centennial Activity Center are auxiliary staff. We're doing our best to provide hours for them as we can, but that is the nature of auxiliary work as well, is that it's not guaranteed hours per week, that it's program related, and we staff accordingly.
Okay.
Good. Okay, Councillor O'Neill.
Yeah, I think I'm going to pull back on my questions, but I will comment that just in response to Councillor Wilson in terms of has council seen this, I guess we most recently saw the plans and were briefed on the plans during the rezoning. The land had to be rezoned, and then there had to be a variance given, I think. Not rezoning, variance.
There's a variance.
Variance.
Correct.
Because the sloping property, and so the back corner was actually going to be technically too high, even though it wasn't really that high off the ground, looking from one way. So we had pretty detailed plans there, but there were open houses that most of us went to. But that was before we got on council, I think. So, but I don't think any of us understood that this was going to happen. So in terms of, maybe I will ask this, so in terms of what you are doing now, you are still talking with the school district, yes, and you are still seeking, looking at additional spaces wherever you can find them.
Yes.
Are you limiting yourself to the city of Coquitlam, or are you perhaps looking into the Tri-Cities? I know you think that the City of Coquitlam program should be offered in Coquitlam, but are you maybe looking in Port Moody and Port Coquitlam as well? And if not, I'd recommend maybe you do if it's this difficult to find other space. Have you been limiting yourself to Coquitlam right now? Because there's even high schools very close to Coquitlam outside of Coquitlam that might have gym time, and there are both public and independent high schools in the area. So that's a possibility. But you want to probably stick with the public because we're going to be able to hopefully get a better deal from the public ones because if it happens because of the displacement that they're causing. But it's worth keeping in mind.
Yeah, and if I should, thank you. I think the focus has been on Coquitlam for obvious reasons, but part of the reality. When this was announced as the NLC, it was identified as a 12-month closure. The thinking was, okay, some of that we could relocate. It's longer than expected. And now when you realize the venues that are available are largely difficult to sustain kind of adult type of programming, right, because some of them are smaller gyms. But also the fact that as you add venues, so let's say you had a dozen venues that you're looking at, it is problematic to actually man those venues, with cash stations or to have anything drop-in programs. How do you manage those? So you want to limit the number of venues that you can actually outfit with the right facilities to serve the needs of those programs. So there's actually a real fine balance. When you get into the details, it becomes clear that specific a number of facilities, as few as possible, that can be outfit properly would make the most sense, but that's becoming difficult. And then you have reduced programming and higher operating costs, and that's really why we're getting the kind of high-level numbers that you're seeing in the reports. But we'll take the comments around the potential to use other facilities outside of Coquitlam. That's a very good comment, and we will talk to the school district about that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rasmussen.
Just to get myself clear here, we're talking about a joint use agreement on a facility equally contributed to, and your comment was that we'll be shut down on our use of that building for almost up to 2 years, but the school board's going to run their facilities in a gym through that period of time. So how much impact is the school board having? If we're joint use, there should be equal impact going both ways. Is the school board not taking any impact on their programming and continuing on and saying that the only impact that we believe should be on the city side, which to me doesn't measure up to a joint use agreement? Can you clarify on that?
I actually don't know the specifics of how the school district is affected, but I'll find that out.
I think that's something that we should know, but because also when I got in the report and I looked at it, I felt when I saw the joint use agreement that there's no large gymnasiums, and we know with basketball and everything, they to not move and share some of the impact between the two, especially for adults in these scores that need younger teenagers that need the larger gymnasiums. So that's one of my biggest concerns about that part of it. If we're partners in a building, there should be equal sharing of the impacts of this. And I think, as Mayor Stewart said, I still don't understand. I didn't quite understand the full year shutdown before. Now to 2 years, I don't understand, especially if it's a standalone building. If you're connecting, you're only connecting to one part of the building. So why is it taking the whole building down? So I would like to have some more information on that from them and explain it in a more detailed fashion, either a report back to us or an email back to council.
Just through the chair, some of the impact that I can think of while you were speaking was, of course, they're losing a secondary gym during the daytime, which would be a profound impact on phys ed classes and other things that the school uses a gym for in the day. They're just not feeling the impact because they don't run evening programs like we do. So they are losing a second gym for their daytime use.
Mm-hmm. But I can understand that, but we're talking about we use what ours in the evenings are. So there's that one impact. But I just want to know, between this building, they're making up all their impacts by using our gym.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Councillor Cirillo.
Just great information on all the financial impacts. Thank you for that. It was really thorough, and thank you for the joint use to give us an understanding. The one thing that my question is, if we're going to see this come back, I would like to see how it impacts groups, like adults versus kids. What's the breakdown? But also Coquitlam residents versus non-residents. Do we know if we have some historical on those patterns? I'd really like to understand how many Coquitlam residents are being impacted, if it's adults or kids. And I'm also, on page 2, when it looked at, it says sports and dance and fitness and birthday parties, of course it made me think this is a lot of female programming, right?
Yeah.
And I would like to understand what is the impact to our girls, especially over the summer, if there's no access to the theater programs or the birthday party. So I would like to see the gender splits on that too. But to Mayor Stewart's point about the joint use agreement, I think there is some stuff in the joint use agreement that the school district maybe needs to revisit about sharing what they do have available during that time. But yeah, I'd love to see the more info on how it's impacting people, because it's less than 50% of Coquitlam residents that'll be impacted.
Yeah. No,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Good. Anything else? Okay. The report before us. Recommendation to receive the report. Councillor Asmundson, second by Councillor Cirillo. All in favor? Any objections? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Item 3 is the 2015 cash process review. Staff recommendation is that the committee receive the report for information.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Cirillo, second by Councillor O'Neill. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Carry unanimous.
That's the last formal item on the agenda, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Second.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, second by Councillor Asmundson. All in favor? Passed unanimous.
10 minutes.
Yep. 10 minutes.